Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Listen, when we talk about fighters, boxers, MMA fighters, wrestlers, or any combatant who has to meet a certain weight in order for their bout to go forward, right? That process, for those who want to gain an, I'm going to say, unfair advantage, right? That process for those who are dropping 30 pounds in 5 days. We've seen where some fighters have dropped, 18 pounds in 1 day. Recently, Rolly Romero went on record and said he'd had to drop 16 pounds the night before the weigh-in when he was getting ready to fight Tank Davis. Now, my thing is weight bullying is extremely dangerous, right? Now, it can be dangerous for the person the weight bully is fighting, because what do we say when kids are in, elementary school, junior high school, and even high school? When you got the bigger kid picking on the smaller kid, right? That's called being a bully. That's not tolerated. A lot of times, especially when I grew up, bullies didn't do good around my way. And I'll just leave it as that. But now when you come to sports, it seems like everything that you're taught and everything that was explained to us to be wrong, or guys having an unfair advantage just because of size, when it comes to boxing, MMA, or other sports where the weigh-in's required, it's like that's just set aside. So the thing we need to understand is the weight bullying can be dangerous for the smaller opponent on fight night. But at the same time, the weight bullying may be even more dangerous for that fighter who's losing unreasonable, unrealistic amounts of weight to try to gain an advantage. And there have been instances where those fighters never get to the ring to be a weight bully because they die during the weight cut process. Now, there are a lot of different videos out there showing the weight cut process, showing fighters, boxers, and MMA fighters actually trying to cut the weight. And it shows what they put themselves through. Okay? And in my opinion, the weight cut process is probably an even bigger fight than the fight itself, if they're able to make it into the ring. The thing is, if they're able to make it to the weigh-in and get to the ring, sometimes they perform well. They're able to rehydrate, they do it the right way, they have a nutritionist, sodium levels, everything begins to stabilize. Carbs, everything, right? All the things that they cut out. Everything comes back full circle. They get in the ring and have an optimal performance. But then there are the instances where you see guys get in the ring and they look less than lackluster. And then we wonder why they get dominated. Or they get in the ring and their bodies aren't 100% and the punch resistance has been affected because they've drained so much fluid from their body that takes away from the fluid surrounding the brain. So from them taking a shot they would normally be able to handle at a healthy weight, now when they get hit at that lower weight, that shot hits them, causes that brain to kind of bounce around, and then they get knocked out. And then they got even bigger problems. So what you've seen before a lot of fights with boxers, with any combatant, some guys end up going into the hospital because of dehydration, severe dehydration. Some guys after the fight end up going to the hospital. Okay? So there are, like I said, and have been instances where people have lost up to 30 pounds. And there's processes to help people lose 30 pounds in like 5 days. Fighters do it. MMA fighters do it as well. Boxers and MMA fighters do it. And this can really mess up your organs, man. Okay? So the thing to understand is 65% of the body is made up of water. And for most of these fighters, they already have a low body fat percentage. So for them, getting down to those last 2 weeks, 1 week, 5 days out, 3 days out, it's not a matter of how can I cut fat, because most of them don't have no damn fat to cut, like Devin Haney. It's a matter of cutting water, reducing their water weight. So this is where they come to dropping the sodium and their water intake, man. And it's frustrating because when I look at the guy Rivera, what recently happened with him, you look at Devin Haney, even when you go back and you think about Chavez Jr., Canelo, what Errol Spence does, to make weight, he says it makes it a lot easier, but it's hard on them, okay? But the bottom line is they want to cut that sodium out. So the way they get to this point where they're able to really cut out the sodium, a lot of sodium in the body, and retaining a lot of water, is they start off by really drinking a whole lot of water about 5 days out. Okay, because what that does by drinking all that water, they say they try to get to about 2 gallons of water at the 5-day mark. 2 gallons. Now, I'll tell you what, just try to drink a gallon of water. Drinking 2 gallons of water, like that is hard to do. Just trying to drink 1 gallon is near impossible for most people. But by them drinking all of that water, it puts their body into overdrive, meaning they just really start to urinate a lot and it starts to release a lot of water. Okay? So that's part of the process, to put your body in overdrive and cause it to push out a lot of water. Then they go and they cut out all the carbs. Now, when your body has carbs in it, well, of course, that's a form of energy. The body uses to burn off all those carbs as a form of energy. But they cut all that out, and then a lot of them go to like a keto diet, where they're just eating a lot of protein, no carbs, and a lot of that keto diet, 70% of the calorie intake will be fat, and 25% of it will be protein. So when people say, well, why would they cut out the carbs? It's because 1 gram of carbs pulls 2.7 grams of water. So by getting rid of those carbs, they're pulling water out of their body. So that's the reason why you see a lot of people, even if they're not fighters, they get on these funky diets where they cut the carbs out. Because, yeah, there may be some fat loss, but for the most part, it's a temporary weight loss where they're losing a lot of water weight. And that's why you notice when a person comes off of those diets and 3-4 days later they eat, you notice that they put a lot of the weight back on and they're not happy. Okay, so this is something that is to be done temporarily just to achieve a certain weight. And that's what these fighters are doing. Salt is another thing. Oh, what happened here? Salt is another thing that they cut out. Hold on, my thing, did this cut off? Okay, it did. Salt is another thing that they cut out. Sodium is a micronutrient. So they have to cut that salt out their body, because salt is another thing that results in water retention, and it makes a person feel really, really bloated. So the salt and carbs are things they have to get out their body, and the body needs those things. So on the on the first day, they're taking in 5 gallons of water. They kind of start what's similar to like a keto diet, and they just start to get rid of carbs, and they start to get rid of any salts. Puts the body into overdrive, and which results in a lot of releasing of water. By the second and third day, they're down to 1 gallon of water a day. By the fourth day, they're down to about half a gallon of water a day. By the fifth day, they're down to 1/4 gallon of water a day. And then by the day of the weigh-in, they're just taking sips of water. And this is where a lot of fighters really start to have problems. Because on the day of the weigh-in, if they're still not where they're supposed to be, now this is after cutting out all the carbs, cutting out the sodium, drinking a whole lot of water, right? This is from running in the heat, Right? These are after taking all of these extreme measures, which is not the most extreme, but these extreme measures to begin their weight cut to try to make that goal of whatever their weight has to be on weigh-in day. They get to the weigh-in day, they're like chips of ice. It's all they're allowed. Some aren't even allowed that. And what happens is the body starts to shut down. So let's take this a step further now. Let's say they get to the weigh-in or the day of the weigh-in and they're still off. They're still 5 pounds, 7 pounds out, 10 pounds out, 11, 12 pounds out. The day of the weigh-in. This is where tragedy can strike. And this is where you look at like what was happening to the guy, Michel Rivera. It was before the weigh-in. So when I first posted a picture, I did a video about him yesterday. There was a guy who posted it and did the article. He spun it as if Michel Rivera was in the hospital days after the fight. Now, he is still recovering from the fight and the dehydration, but the picture of him being in the hospital were days before the fight. So what he went through days before the fight is he kind of reached that point of what I'm talking about right now. So on the day of a weigh-in, when they're not where they want to be, this is where hot baths come into play. This is where the sauna comes into play. Now, when they're in the hot baths, they're not in the hot bath once. When they go into the sauna, they're not in the sauna once. They do cycles. Hot baths, 10 to 15 minutes in cycles. Because being in a hot bath causes your body to sweat. Okay? It causes your body to reduce and release water. Now, when you want to talk about the other method, the sauna, one method they call the dry method, that's the sauna. When these guys get into the sauna and they're trying to cut weight, I don't know if you've watched different documentaries of guys cutting weight in the sauna. Half of them, they can barely walk at this point. Like the sauna is like the final step. Well, it's not it's the final step as far as trying to sweat out water weight, okay? But by this point, these guys are in bad shape. Half of them have no strength. They can barely walk. It's horrible. And if they can't get it at this point, this is where you see sometimes the fights just canceled or guys end up, in serious medical trouble. And they do that in cycles. And while they're in the sauna, they have multiple towels wrapped around them to force their body to sweat out and release what little bit of water weight is there in order for them to try to make a weight. And this is what you see happening to a lot of our beloved fighters. I'm talking boxing now because, I'm all about boxing, but a lot of combatants go through this. So when you hear a guy like Errol Spence saying he's not sure he want to mess around making 147 anymore. We know he has a nutritionist. He says making the weights a lot easier. However, I have to question that. Devin Haney. We all know Devin Haney looks crazy getting down to 135. Rolly Romero, Teofimo Lopez. These guys are cutting crazy amounts of weight to get down. Adrian Broner. That's why Adrian Broner's come up with that 144-pound weight, 143-pound weight, because of what it was taking out of him. When you listen to these guys talk, when they do talk about it, they say they're damn near killing themselves. Like, when they say they're killing themselves, that's no exaggeration. They start losing control. They start becoming emotional. You see guys crying. It's all kind of stuff that goes on with the body, man. And it's just not safe. So what happens is once they reach this point, that where the hot bath isn't working in cycles, the sauna's not working in cycles, then you got diuretics. And when these guys start to take these diuretics, man, which a lot of them are not allowed, that's why guys end up getting in trouble because they get popped for taking diuretics. It's because they're trying to lose weight, man. And by taking those diuretics, it just increases the urination, man, and that helps them to lose water weight. And all in all, they do this as long as they can right up until when they're called to go and weigh in. And that's why you see some boxers, when it's time for weigh-in, they come flying in, they get on the scale, make the weight, and they immediately get off, and they hand those guys Pedialyte or whatever they give them. And then you see those guys go out and they eat a small meal, and then after that they graduate to something a bit more, a bigger meal, you know, because they just can't go and just take and drink a gallon of fluid and eat a big plate of pasta. That's just not how these guys are supposed to begin to rehydrate and begin to put the carbs in the body, fats in the body, put the sodium back in the body. You know, that's just not something that they're supposed to do. There's a process. And what's really frustrating so just imagine this, right? You got these guys who cut weight, put their body through hell, saunas, hot baths, running in the heat, cutting out sodium, cutting out carbs, taking diuretics, right? They go do a weigh-in. Now I'm talking about, what's his name? Eubank Jr. Go do a weigh-in and then are told they can only rehydrate 10 pounds or something. As soon as he drinks water, eats a small meal, that's 10 pounds. So basically, he's got to continue, or any fighter who has this clause in the contract, like Chavez Jr., right? Canelo. They still have to maintain this wicked diet and this wicked regimen. And if they go overweight, over the contracted weight, then now they got to go and start these crazy ass cycles again to cut off that weight that they put on after the weigh-in. So I wanted to bring that to you guys so y'all can have a better understanding of weight bullying and what weight bullying actually does. And I'm telling y'all right now, this weight bully stuff, man, it's not good. It's not safe. And I think it's not something that can be sustained long term. And it's extremely dangerous. I don't like it. And something needs to be done, because I know boxing is a prize fighting sport. Guys fight for money. But if we tell our kids that it's not cool for you to be bigger than another child, than to go and fight them and be mean to them or whatever it is, man, and that's bullying. Even if the little guy is the aggressor, you still don't want your bigger child to go out there and whip their butt, because you know the fight's not fair. But when it comes to boxing, when it comes to combat sports, nobody seems to care about that, as long as for this moment in time they can hit a certain weight. And then after that, no one cares if you come in the ring 30 pounds over. And see, that's one of the problems with boxing. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop watching the sport, but that's something else that needs to be addressed. Because these guys, although it's their choice, and I agree with those of you out there who are saying they're stupid to try to drop 30 pounds in 5 days. They're stupid to be walking around at 180 trying to fight at 135, 140, 147. Hey, I don't disagree with you. But at the end of the day, weight bullying may not always work out to the advantage of the big man. It may work out as a disadvantage, and where the big man ends up losing his damn life. Because it's just not natural for the body to cut that much damn weight, especially when the body, 65% of it is water. And for you to cut that much water weight, 30 pounds of it, in 5 days, 4 days, in 1 week, in 2 days, 18, 16 pounds a day before the weigh-in, it's just not normal, and it's dangerous, and to me it needs to stop. That being said, y'all be cool, and I'm in the breeze.